Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Thursdays, wherever you may be across this great nation. I am soon to head to a Thursday night football game, not the big one that we'll be talking about between the Bills and Dolphins, which is a fantastic game, and I can't honestly wait to watch it tonight. But instead, to one that matters far more to me, on a personal level, my 8th grade son's football game. So I will be there soon. But first, I'm going to do this show, and then I'm going to do a gambling special show with my friend Kelly Stewart, a.k.a. Kelly in Vegas. And I have a Prize Picks winner for all of you tonight. PrizePicks.com, code OutKick. Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With Prize Picks, you against the number. You can win up to 100 times your money. With as little as 4 correct picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000. We have a free square. So I have got 4 picks for you. One of them is an automatic winner. That is, you cannot lose Caleb Williams over 1/2 passing yard. That is Prize Picks' gift to you. That is my gift to all of you as well. So that is part 1 of our 4-part winner here. The other 3, Josh Allen, more than 246.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill, more than 1/2 of a touchdown. That is, Tyreek Hill has to score a touchdown tonight. And Dawson Knox, more, he's the tight end for the Bills, more than 13.5 receiving yards. So, Caleb Williams over 1/2 yard, which is a winner, going to be a winner. Josh Allen, more passing yards. Tyreek Hill, more on touchdowns. And Dawson Knox, more on receiving yards. If all 4 of those hit, you get a 10-1 payout. That is, if you put $10 down on your picks, you get back 100. If you put down 100, you get back 1,000. And right now, if you haven't played before, if you put down $5, you get an automatic $50 in your account. Prize Picks, best way to win real money this football season. With this picks, we came within a foot, not even a foot, a toe, of hitting on our 10-1 picks last week. That last touchdown, sorry, Ravens fans, that did not count because there was a toe out of bounds. That would have been a 10-1 payout for us this week. More on Josh Allen passing yards, more on Tyreek Hill touchdowns, and more on Dawson Knox receiving yards. Prize Picks, best way to win real money. I've got the picks for you. Get hooked up right now. All you have to do is use code OutKick. Download the app. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. Code OutKick, $5. You play, you get $50 guaranteed. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, so I gave you those picks. I also am going to tell you some picks. Let me go ahead and give you my Thursday night football picks overall. I like the Bills. I think the Bills are going to win this game outright. They're plus 2.5-point underdog, most recent number I saw several hours ago. And I like the over in this game. Over 48.5 and the Bills. Bills came back from a big deficit against the Cardinals. Josh Allen, I think, is the second best quarterback in the NFL after Patrick Mahomes. But I am on the Bills plus 2.5 and the Dolphins over 48.5. So I got a couple of things that I want to play for you here. You guys know this is my most recent book. It's called American Playbook. It was the #1 best-selling nonfiction book in America when it was released in August of last year. It's been a year since this book came out. It's been a long time. My prior book, before this one, was called Republicans Buy Sneakers Too. And that is a famous quote from Michael Jordan when he was asked why he did not get political. And if you go and read Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, America is starting to come around slowly with me on this being the right direction for the country to go. That is to follow the Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods example and not really weigh in on politics and just allow your own individual excellence to be the hallmark of your sporting identity. That was the story throughout the 80s and the 90s. Nobody looked to athletes to see who they were going to vote for. Then social media happened, and this idea of, oh, I've got to use my platform to make sure everybody knows who I'm voting for President of the United States. And by the way, I'm voting for Donald Trump. But I don't think any of you should vote for Donald Trump because I'm voting for him. I trust all of you to make your own decisions, to do your own research, to get registered to vote. You don't have to agree with me at all. And by the way, I got tons of friends who are voting for Kamala Harris. I can get along with them fine. I'll go out, I'll have a beer, and we'll argue about sports gambling. We won't even hardly talk about politics. I think that's healthy. I don't think you should pick friends based on how they vote. My personal opinion. That's actually the era in which I grew up in. In Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, I quote my grandmother. When I was a kid, she said you don't talk about two things, religion and politics. That's actually the era that I grew up in. And what's funny about the religion one, let me just talk about the religion one instead of politics. The era that I grew up in, everybody was Christian. Everybody that I knew in the state of Tennessee as a little kid growing up went to church. And the reason why my grandma said you don't talk about religion wasn't because there were tons of Muslims or tons of Jewish people that I grew up around. It was because of the evangelical churches, which one you were a member of, could be controversial. Church of Christ, Presbyterian. I was raised a Southern Baptist. Some people are Catholic, Episcopalian, whatever it was. The idea of the difference between the Christian denominations was why my grandmother said, hey, you don't talk about religion. Not because people were a different religion, but just because people were a different denomination of the same religion. That used to be super controversial, which denomination you were, not which religion you were. Anyway, politics. Much of my life, my mom and my dad often voted different ways. Kind of the way life went. I think they would acknowledge this. My mom tended to vote Democrat. My dad tended to vote Republican. To the extent that moms and dads are voting different today, that's to a large extent, I think, what is actually still the case, right? Men are more likely to vote Republican based on pocketbook-related issues. Women are more likely to vote now based on abortion, but also based on emotional appeals, generally speaking. I know lots of people, there are beta males voting for Kamala, and there are alpha women voting for Trump, right? There are exceptions, as always, to whatever the general rule might be. But the point in a larger context is, for most of my life until social media became a thing, people did not make their political identity such a huge part of their personal identity. The reason why I bring that up is I think what's old is becoming new again. Patrick Mahomes and Caitlin Clark and the musician Usher, all three were asked interesting questions here. They were asked, Patrick Mahomes, because his wife Brittany has liked Donald Trump posts on Instagram, there is an assumption that his wife Brittany is going to vote for Trump. Generally speaking, I would submit to you, there are not very many women voting for Trump who are married to men voting for Kamala. Would most of you agree that that is probably the rarest of the couple relationships? That is, woman who is voting for Trump, husband who is voting for Kamala. I would submit to you as a general basis, if your wife is voting Trump, the husband is almost assuredly voting Trump. I don't think there's very many women voting Trump, men voting Kamala. Again, just based on simple math. But Patrick Mahomes is asked about that. Caitlin Clark is asked about that because she liked a Taylor Swift post on Instagram. And Usher, who was on The View, was asked about it as well. All three of them declined to take a stand on the 2024 presidential election. They say do your own research, most assuredly vote, but they don't feel the need to lecture you. Mahomes, I would argue, is the most popular male athlete in America. Caitlin Clark, I would argue, is the most popular female athlete in America. And Usher is certainly one of the most popular musicians historically over the last 20 years in America. I had the team cut this because I thought it was important. I want to play it for you now. Here is Mahomes. Here is Caitlin Clark. Here is Usher, all giving their take on the 2024 election, which is they're not picking a side.
I've always said I don't want my place and my platform to be used to endorse a candidate or do whatever. Either way, I think my place is to inform people to get registered to vote. It's to inform people to do their own research and then make their best decision for them and their family. And so I think that's every time I'm on this stage and I get asked these questions, I'm going to refer back to that because I think that's what makes America so great.
You know, I have this amazing platform, so I think the biggest thing would be just encourage people to register to vote. I think for myself, this is the second time I can vote in an election. At age 22, I could vote when I was 18. So I think do that. That's the biggest thing I can do with the platform that I have, and that's the same thing Taylor did. And I think continue to educate yourself with the candidates that we have, the policies that they're supporting. I think that's the biggest thing you can do, and that's what I would recommend to every single person that has that opportunity in our country.
That in this emergency that we're in, I think that behooves artists to come out and speak for Kamala against Donald Trump because he is an existential threat to the country. What do you say to that?
You know what? I don't get too deep into politics. I didn't get a chance to watch the debate last night. I obviously have been watching like everybody else. I think voting is an individual choice. And I think that you're right. You have to look at the reality of the country that we are and the country that we want to be, and find the candidate that you feel both are who fits the category of where we want to be. And that's it. And that's what you vote based off of. Who you highlight and how you choose to highlight it on whatever platform you have is your prerogative.
Yes.
I think this is important. I don't think it's coincidental that all three of them in the same day, Patrick Mahomes, the most popular male athlete in America, Caitlin Clark, the most popular female athlete in America, and Usher, one of the most popular musicians over the last generation, all three declined to take a side. Now, admittedly, Taylor Swift came out and endorsed Kamala, but I do think this is really consequential. What's going on here? We're going back to the Michael Jordan era. I think that Patrick Mahomes and Caitlin Clark want to have the biggest possible audience for their athletic excellence. And I think they are now taking the lesson of Michael Jordan and of Tiger Woods. I would submit to you the two most popular athletes of my entire life, certainly in basketball, but I think overall is Michael Jordan. And I think Tiger is the most transcendent athlete in terms of bringing a new audience to golf. I have no idea how Tiger Woods has ever voted. I have no idea how Michael Jordan has ever voted. My suspicion would be that both guys have probably voted for multiple parties. To the extent that they vote, I think a lot of athletes don't even bother to vote. Why do I think this is so significant? Because it's a sign that we are returning to normalcy in America. And I want to pat OutKick on the back here because I do think that we have been consequential in returning American sports to a middle ground. Still, there is everyone else in sports and there is OutKick. We're the only site that will say, hey, you know, dudes shouldn't be able to compete against women while pretending to be women. 75, 80, 90% of sports fans agree with us on that. But what we have done is we have created an actual marketplace of ideas. What we had was a distorted artificial version of that marketplace where everybody just competed to be the most left-wing sports outlet possible. What's staggering to me is not that OutKick is winning and that we are growing and that we are having such an important cultural impact. It is that we still have no competition. Think about this for a minute. We built a $100 million business in sports media, sold it off to Fox, made me $100 millionaire. Do you know there's 3 people that have made themselves 100 millionaires in sports by simply founding and doing content in sports? Me, Dave Portnoy, sports media that is, and Bill Simmons. Now maybe one day Stephen A. Smith's going to join that team. Maybe Pat McAfee's going to join that team. It's not a very big list of people. And by the way, now when you look at what they're paying for people to call games, maybe there's going to be a bunch of people. But in terms of actually building something that didn't exist before, Dave did it with Barstool. I did it with OutKick. Bill Simmons did it with The Ringer. Nobody else has built anything. I think Colin Cowherd might be getting close with the volume, which he's done a good job with. But by and large, actual content guys that have built businesses that are bigger than them, that would not have existed if we had not founded them. That's it, right? That is the list. How do we have no competition? I mean, that's the part of me just from a pure business perspective. You got a friggin' knife fight on the far left in sports where everybody's trying to get a little bit of a competitive advantage by arguing how much they love chicks with dicks. Nobody's actually even competing with us. It's super left-wing sports, off the chart here, and then it's OutKick somewhere in the middle. And that's the reality. And so we serve the largest possible marketplace. And I think what's happened is, for a long time, there was no consequence for being left-wing. Because when LeBron James comes out and shows up in Akron and he endorses Hillary Clinton, there is absolutely no one out there that has any impact on LeBron at that time, right, to a large extent. And so he could get a free ride by just embracing the left wing in the country. Because what Republicans want and what people who vote right of center, moderate voters, even people I would argue left of center, is not someone who is going to argue we're on your side. It's just, hey, maybe don't dive in and try to lecture me about how I should vote. And I really think sports lost its way. And I think this was epitomized to a large extent in 2020 when even the NBA wants to pretend this didn't happen. They put left-wing political slogans on the back of NBA jerseys to replace the actual player names, and they wrote Black Lives Matter on the basketball court. Like, they try to pretend that never happened. The NBA tanked its brand. Ratings have not come close to recovering since they did that. If Adam Silver would just come out and say, hey, you know what? We screwed that up. We shouldn't have gotten hyper-political. We shouldn't have decided to turn our game itself into political sloganeering. I would at least acknowledge, hey, he's being honest, even though they made the mistake. Now, they got paid a ton of money. The sports media marketplace is still growing because the overall media ecosystem is collapsing. And the only way to guarantee whatever small audience you can still get on traditional television and cable and satellite is 2 things: live news, which always has a draw, and sports. Live is pretty much it. Otherwise, you're competing against Netflix, you're competing against Hulu, you're competing against Tubi, Disney Plus, a lot of these different streaming devices, and Amazon Prime. And as a result, the viewership for everything else has collapsed. So the NBA got lucky because the marketplace for sports was significant enough that it outweighed their stupidity. But they still tanked the brand. And the viewership is a fraction of what it was when Michael Jordan played. And the NBA still hasn't learned its lesson because Steve Kerr spoke at the Democrat National Convention for Kamala, because Steph Curry recorded a video at the Democrat National Convention for Kamala. They didn't just endorse, they showed up at the actual convention itself. But I do think Mahomes, Caitlin Clark, and Usher making the decision that they did is significant in terms of where it leads us from here. Now, a couple of other sports stories that are out there and one non-sports story. The Pac-12 is down to 2 members. The Pac-12 is down to Washington State and Oregon State right now. And there are now, this morning early, there was the announcement that 4 new schools will join the Pac-12 in the 2026-27 year. Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and Fresno State. So we got 4 new additions to Washington State and Oregon State. And reports are that the new Pac-12, which now has 6 teams, will eventually end up with 8. And there are many different teams that are out there in the running to potentially be the next couple of members. These schools are leaving the Mountain West. I don't think it's going to elevate in any significant way the Pac-12 back to a major conference. We're stuck with the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12. We've got basically a Power 4 now, plus Notre Dame. But I do feel good about Oregon State and Washington State being able to find someone because they ultimately were the schools that got left behind. Now, I still think it's crazy that you've got Cal and Stanford traveling all the way across the nation to play in the ACC. I'm not sure how much of a long-term fit that's going to end up being. Maybe they decide that it makes more sense in the years ahead to go back and rejoin this new Pac-10 or Pac-6 or Pac-8 or Pac-12, whatever they end up recreating. But I do feel like Oregon State and Washington State have helped to at least balance out in some way their programs going forward. In fact, I'm going to talk about those games. Oregon goes to Oregon State this weekend, and you've got Washington State going to Washington in the battle of the Pac-2 going up against the schools that have left for the Big Ten, Washington, Oregon, certainly USC and UCLA. So that is news out there in the world of sports. One more little bit that I want to hit you with, and then I'm going to jump in and go do my gambling show, The Fade, with Kelly Stewart. So if you're out there, I told you, let me also give a little bit of housekeeping here. Monday on OutKick during football season is College Football Monday. We react to all the games that took place. I'm going to write my starting 11 every Sunday, just so you are aware. If you've forgotten I've been writing that for over a decade now. Tuesday, by and large, will be NFL Reaction Tuesday. I love football. I know we're in the middle of presidential campaigns. I might splice in some news on politics, but if you're obsessed with politics, you can listen to the Clay Travis Buck Sexton Show, which is available in all 50 states on over 500 radio stations, or 500-ish. I'm not sure what the exact number is. But I'll do limited, by and large, politics on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, more politics on this show. I'm also, like I said, going to be on the road. I'm headed up to Madison, Wisconsin for the Alabama-Wisconsin game this weekend. Taking my family. Can't wait for that. Should be a lot of fun. Okay. Now, I want to tell you, I was watching Joy Reid's show. Joy Reid, not surprisingly, a total and complete moron. And she had on a super left-wing prognosticator, and they just argued that Trump supporters are despicable. That was the word they used, despicable. And to me, this is just a lie. I've met thousands and thousands of Trump supporters all over the nation, and I have never found them to be remotely despicable. Actually, I found them to be incredibly patriotic, incredibly friendly, and fantastic human beings. So what I believe is fascinating is, by and large, you don't hear, and I'm on Fox News all the time, I think I would have heard somebody say it, you don't hear people say that Kamala Harris supporters are despicable very often on Fox News. The attacks on Trump supporters and Trump himself are far nastier on MSNBC than anything that is said about Kamala Harris, in my opinion, based on watching news on Fox News. And I do think that is interesting because it ties in with my argument would be pretty clear here. If Fox News did the debate, I legitimately do not believe that they would fact check only one side. I don't think they would fact check in general because I think that's a flawed concept. But I certainly don't believe that they would only stop Kamala Harris and fact check her. They would have applied the rules evenly. And I think what they would have done is actually what CNN did in the first debate, which is they would have stayed back and they wouldn't have jumped all in. They would have let Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, or Donald Trump and Joe Biden, when the first debate happened, they would have let them fight it out and not felt compelled to jump in. All right. I love all of you. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. We are now flipping over and recording the fade, Kelly Stewart and I. That will be up a little bit later. I hope you enjoy Bills Dolphins. I'm off shortly to my own Thursday night football game, which is my 8th grade son's football game. See you guys. Thanks for watching.